I was 17 and I was living in Mexico. I was doing an experimental study program through UC Davis. And I had met up with a bunch of other students. They were all older than I was. I was basically a first-year student. They were all seniors. So they kind of took me under their wing, and we kind of went out a lot. And through them, I met all of these people who now I would call activists or community organizers. And they were getting together on a regular basis. They were sharing food, they were sharing stories, they were smoking lots of cigarettes, nothing that I was ever doing. And through that, they started telling me, or I started hearing stories about this war that the US was involved in Nicaragua. I didn't know anything about a war with Nicaragua. And the group started organizing a protest. And they asked me if I wanted to go to the protest. I said, sure. So I show up in the morning on the main street in Mexico City. It's a big, huge street that goes down the center of the city. It's where any big, important march happens. I think that's probably when I started to realize that it was going to be more than just a few of us walking down the street. And as the day went on, thousands and thousands and thousands of people joined this march. We were there at the beginning. They joined from different parts. We marched what seemed like miles. It probably was only 1 mile, but it took most of the day. There was singing, there was dancing, there was people like hugging me and inviting me to join with them and meet with them and share food. And of course, a lot of storytelling about why we needed to stop the war in Nicaragua. And it was the first time that I felt like I was part of something much bigger than me. I get goosebumps just saying that. It was the first time I felt that I belonged in a bigger world, that all sorts of people different from me could come together and invite me in to do something huge. I mean, if there was a smell to that day, the smell would be glory. We felt powerful, like we could do anything. And so at the end, I'm 17, living overseas. I go home and I go back to my apartment. I do something that I rarely do, which is I call my parents. And I call them up and I'm like, Mom, Dad, I tell them all about the march. I tell them all about the war in Nicaragua. I tell them why it's wrong and how things have to be changed, because I have now come to think about justice and fairness around issues of foreign policy. And I get done telling them about this epic, amazing thing, and there's this silence on the other end of the line. And you know that kind of silence when you're talking with your family. You know something's like not good. And after this silence that went on for a while, I don't remember which one started, but they both kind of started to say in different ways, sweetheart, we read the paper every day, which they do. They read the New York Times. We watch the news every day. We listen to the public radio every day. I remember growing up with Time and Newsweek. I mean, my parents are well-read people. And they said, we haven't heard anything about a war in Nicaragua. We don't think there's a U.S. war in Nicaragua, and maybe you should, think about the people you're hanging out with. I really didn't know how to take that. I mean, once you march with thousands of people against something, you're thinking, yeah, I don't think this is a fake. I don't think this is a joke. I don't think this is not what's going on. So about a month later, I came home to northern San Diego, California, and news broke that the U.S. is and has been funding a secret war, a covert war, supporting a group called the Contras in Nicaragua, and that they have been behind a foreign policy of overthrowing the democratically elected government. And that was the moment, I think, when I really understood somewhere deep inside me that our commercial media and even our public media don't always tell us all the stories that we need to hear or we want to know. And that there are so many stories and communities and issues that didn't, back then especially, this is the analog days, that didn't make it onto the airwaves. And I think, after I was reflecting on this today, I think that that is what started me on my journey to doing community-based media. And for the past 25 years, I've worked with different community groups and social action groups to learn together how we can harness the tools of media to tell the stories that we need to tell to make a difference in our lives and communities.